Welcome into a Mock Draft Wednesday with the Fantasy 4-Pack. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale and Frankie Santiago. Here to keep you guys up to date on the risings and fallings of players as more and more fantasy leagues start doing their drafts. Obviously, it's still early, so I doubt we're getting too many yet, but this is when it gets critical to really be paying attention to those mock drafts. A little bit of news before we launch into the show. Josh Jacobs, and take this with a grain of salt, or for what you will, do whatever you want with this. I don't believe it. Josh Jacobs' goal this season is to catch at least 60 balls. I say to that, yeah, okay, I'll let him do that on someone else's team, and I will just make the bet that that's actually not going to happen.
I mean, I'd love for him to catch that many balls because he's a guy who I've seen go up drafts and down. It's just like depending on what article comes out that week, whether he slides up drafts a few positions or slides back. But I think when come draft day for most people, if you're drafting right before the season starts, he's probably going to end up in that top quarter of the second round, and I doubt you'll see him in the first.
So, was it last year Adrian Peterson said he was going to rush for 1,000 or 2,000 yards? I think it was. I think it was 1,000. I mean, he almost did it. I mean, it could happen. It's probably not going to happen. It could.
It's Adrian Peterson now, so
we know that Josh Jacobs wasn't a big factor in the passing offense last season. We know they still have a ton of options there as far as pass catchers in both the backfield and in the wide receiver core. Call me a cynic, but I just don't see that. That's a pipe dream. I'd love to make $500,000 this year. Probably not going to happen.
Yeah,
I think that's just it's like a nice goal for him. I hope he reaches it, but if he does, he'll be doing it on someone else's team.
Yeah, I'm not hedging my bets on that.
Other less good news: Todd Gurley limited to start camp with a knee. He'll probably be healthy by the time the season starts, but just like we were saying with T.Y. Hilton when he messed up his hammy a week or so ago, you never want to see people especially when you want to see people with injury history getting injured before camps really even started. Not really affecting my Todd Gurley rankings as of this point, but I'll be monitoring the situation. And then something we were all kind of expecting to happen, but it's nice to see it actually, get put pen to paper. Marlon Mack is officially named the starter for the Colts to start the year, although Frank Reich is not afraid to play the hot hand. So just kind of leaning more to what we've been preaching all offseason. Temper those Jonathan Taylor expectations. He's going to be a great running back in the NFL, just probably not this season.
Yeah, it's almost exactly what I was picturing with my take when I was saying people need to be taking Marlon Mack a lot higher and cooling on Taylor, because my guess is he's going to let his rookie get acclimated to the season and get used to playing the NFL and everything that comes with being a pro athlete, and let him slowly take in the offense because there's no rush for it.
Well, and if they're playing the hot hand, I mean, we've seen Marlon Mack be not just a good running back every once in a while, a consistently good running back. If they're giving Marlon Mack, that's basically saying we're going to let Marlon Mack ride off into the sunset with the Colts, and assuming he doesn't get hurt or just suck for some reason, this should be his job.
Well, yeah, and also another thing about Jonathan Taylor, I mean, we've stressed this enough, and I think we can. It's COVID season. It's a year where rookies aren't getting a lot of practice. They're not getting that work in before the season actually starts, so it's unrealistic to expect Taylor to live up to that.
He might be the rookie that I'm least worried about that with, just because of his running style, but...
Yeah, like I said, it's just they're using very colorful and flowery ways of saying we're going to run Mack into the ground, and keep our prize rookie protected.
You guys want to do a little over-under before we get into the mock draft?
Sure, why not?
All right. I've got a trio of receivers here for you. The three fantasy darlings of last year, the rookies, all going in somewhat the same range, within 2 rounds of each other. And surprisingly, all around the same projections as far as receptions go. So I want to get you guys' opinion on this. Let's start with the highest ranked one of the 3 of them, Terry McLaurin. Over under 70 receptions in 2020. And I'm basing these numbers off of what the fantasy community as a whole has essentially put them down for projections for their reception totals for the season.
Do you want me to lead this one or you want to take it?
You can take that one.
I love the talent for Scary Terry, but I hate the team he's currently on. So when I look at his last year targets, 93, I hope they go up, but I can't be comfortable giving him another, 12 targets. I'm cool on it, but I think at the end of the day, Washington's going to be out of a lot of games. So if I had to put money on it, I would go slightly over.
Frankie?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I think that, Terry balled out last year. It's kind of unrealistic that he does more than that because, that's a lot of, targets for a peak high-end receiver. But I think that I do agree. I think that Washington is going to be out of a lot of games, but that also might hurt him in the sense that they don't want to play him and risk injury if they're down too much. But I'm gonna take the under on that.
Interesting. I don't think it's a stretch for him to get 12 more catches than what he had last year. So he's someone who I unfortunately am not getting him a lot just because of where I'm drafting in a lot of my mock drafts. He's not falling at the second pick. He's not falling too much, but he's someone who I'm very interested in having this year just because of the skill set that he has shown he has, combined with the fact that he's really kind of the only one in that offense. They don't have anyone else who's really a threat to his receptions there. I don't know how I feel about Dwayne Haskins, but we've seen good receivers perform with bad quarterbacks before. I don't know if he's going to get into the top 12 with Dwayne, but I could see him easy top 24, and I think 70 receptions should be a pretty easy mark for someone like him to hit.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's more for me that because Terry kind of showed out a little bit last year, defenses can kind of they have tape on him now, so they see they can look at his skills, his weaknesses, his strengths, and try and play against him because, as you said, there's no one else there, so there's no reason not to double him, put the top corner on him. So I think it's going to be telling this year whether he can handle being the number one on a team, or if he's more of a Tyler Lockett guy who needs the supporting cast around him to shine.
All right, let's go to another rookie from last year who everyone was over the moon on, and projected for slightly less than Terry McLaurin. DK Metcalf, Mr. DK Metcalf himself, over under 65 receptions. I thought that was a little bit tougher of a line than the Terry one.
No, actually, I'm more in on this one. He already eclipsed 100 targets, so his reception totals were not that great, and you're only giving him another 7 more receptions, and with him having a quality system, a great quarterback, I don't see a reason why he can't tack on 7, especially if he just gets 100 or even just in the 90s again, which I think is a lot more doable for him given the quality of the whole system he's in.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think it's a lot easier for me to make this call personally. I think, and I've been preaching that I think that he's going to take over as kind of the number one in terms of at least fantasy for that team. As far as receivers go, I think Russ is probably one of the more talented quarterbacks in the league. He's, in my opinion, top 3. It's only 7 more receptions. It's not. I think even if he doesn't reach that peak of volume, even if he gets into the 90s, even high 70s. If his catch rate's good, I can see it.
That's fair. I'm actually going to take the under on this one. I think that Metcalf's efficiency is going to go up, but I still believe that Lockett's going to be the primary receiving option in that offense. It's not like Lockett's not there anymore. They still have a good team there, and they don't throw that much. So when you're combining the fact that Russell Wilson typically throws about 30 times a game, and the fact that Lockett still has to get receptions, Metcalf has to get receptions, they're going to give some passes to other people on the team. Passes go to the running back, they go to the tight end. Maybe no one else is really on their playing field as far as how skilled Lockett and Metcalf are, but I don't think the volume is going to be there to get Metcalf over 65. I still really like what he's bringing to the field this season, and I want to own him when I can because I think he's going to make a lot out of a little with the targets he gets. I just think that 65 might be a tall order for him. And another guy who sort of does a lot with a little low passing volume offense, Marquise Brown, over under 60 receptions.
That one's tough because I'm a real big fan of Hollywood, but just the sheer lack of passing volume on the Ravens does scare me, and the fact that they have a prominent tight end, Mark Andrews. I want to say over just because I love the talent and I love the kid's footwork. I think, you know what? I'll just go in. Like I said, I like the talent. I think he's going to be a prominent piece, so I'll go with the over. I think it's a slimmer shot than the other ones.
Interesting.
But I will buy in on that. Him having a like mid 60s. I think he'd be a taller. I think his 70 would probably be his like cap this year.
Yeah, I'm taking the under on that, especially with like the shortened preseason. And I mean, I don't know how much Lamar has developed as a passer in the offseason, and I think that that's a big part of what Marquise can do. I think that he's more of kind of that deep threat as opposed to the guy who's going to be just getting balls left and right. Yeah, I'm taking the under on that.
Yeah, I mean, no one in that offense really gets balls left and right, so it's hard to peg him for too much more. I mean, last season the kid, I know he was injured, but he only got 71 targets and 46 receptions. I mean, he's the biggest gap of the three that we brought up between what he did last year and the projections for this year. I'm also going to hit the under on that one. I think he could have another very productive year, but I mean, we've stated on this show before, he's going to be boom or bust because of he's like a more volatile DK Metcalf, where like, you know, he could have those explosive games where your opponent has no chance because of what he does, and then he could also have those games where he catches one ball for 17 yards because they are going to run it a lot on the ground with their 4 running backs. They're going to run it a lot on the ground with Lamar Jackson, and we do still know, you know, he's not going to become Aaron Rodgers overnight. He looked miles better than what he did his rookie year last year, but even last year he did not look like a complete passer. There was a lot of gaps in his game. I think that's too much of a jump for me in an offense where they don't want to throw when they don't have to.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just, for me, I think that they're going to continue to try and balance out his passing to running right. And I don't think they want him to, like, they love his skill set so versatile that he can run and be a 1,000-yard rusher. I don't think they, as a franchise, want a guy that's going to have to run that much to win them games, because they have examples with, you know, Cam Newton and just other high, you know, first-round quarterbacks that have gone and tried to be run-first guys. And, you know, RG3 is the reason he's a backup now.
He was fragile. Mike Vick did it for a while.
Vick is a special case, but like I said, I think it's...
I mean, he's probably the best comparison to Lamar Jackson.
Like I said, but Michael Vick is the ceiling for him. They want to develop him into a quarterback, because he's a quarterback first, runner second. So if he can't throw and he has to keep fighting his way into games by being a 1,000-yard rusher, I think it's just going to spell injury in his career, because, you know, you're going to be hit by linebackers all the time. But just jumping back to Hollywood Brown real quick, I just think it's the health is the big reason I put him over. So that's it.
All right, I think that'll do it for over-under for us today. Let's get over to the main feature of the show. Let's head on over to the mock draft. As we've stated in the past, we're doing a mock draft every week for you guys for the rest of the preseasons. That way you guys can get the information updated on a weekly basis. We're going to keep it same format from here on out, so it's always going to be half-point PPR, 15-person draft, or 12 people in the league, and we're going to randomize positions. Today, Vitali is taking the top position on the board, drafting out of the 2 slot. Frankie is finally not drafting last. He's moving all the way up to 6.
I'm still counting this as a bottom half pick.
And I'm drafting out of the 8 hole today, so I'm not particularly excited about that, but it'll be interesting to draft out of the back half of the draft for once. I know it's probably a pretty easy pick for you at 2. What are you thinking about?
Well, previous times I've gone with Zeke. I think I'm just going to keep it simple here, and I'm going to go ahead and take Saquon when I know the computer's going to absolutely lock in CMC with the first pick. So not much brain power for me. I always, like I said, with these top picks, don't get cute. Take the highest value elite runner you can get, because we know how valuable quality running backs are that are lead dogs in their systems.
Yeah, I mean, Christian McCaffrey is 93% expected to go off the board at number 1, and he did. So that's kind of showing you just how in on CMC everyone in the league is. So it's a good year to be in the 2-hole if you don't believe in Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, as I agree with Frankie's take earlier, fade CMC. I mean, he's been the top guy.
I love the team name, AJ Dillon Hype Train.
Oh yeah, I guess I feel like I gotta take my every show shot at Frankie's rankings and just kind of keep whittling him down until he's not on either of those trains anymore.
You're gonna put the kid in a straitjacket.
That's the goal.
Yeah, I don't really. See, we had 2 wide receivers go in the top 5 picks, which is something I actually haven't seen a lot in mock drafts. At least not Devontae going over Michael Thomas, but all the running backs left on the board. I like Kamara a lot this year, so I'm probably just going to take him.
Sure.
He's in an offense that has historically been, very efficient. So yeah, I'm just going to lock him in there. It's not that I don't like Henry or Cook, but I just think that Kamara has the highest upside.
I'm not terribly surprised by it. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen a lot, but that is something that definitely could be coming up in redraft leagues this year, especially given how consistent those top 2 receivers are. I mean, Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams are sort of in a tier of their own this year in fantasy football. I wouldn't take Devontae Adams as early as 4 because there are some other guys that I like more than him, but I think definitely at 5. If I was drafting at 5 or 6, I'd be heavily looking at taking one of those 2, just because I think it gives you a clear advantage over almost everyone else at the wide receiver position. And then because of also where you're drafting, there should still be some running backs on the board to give you a nice running back to pair with them, as long as you take one in the second half. At 1-8, Dalvin Cook fell to me, so I'm going to go ahead and lock him up. I love the talent, and I expect him to go in the top 6 in most drafts. So if he falls to me at 8, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah, so I was going to let you make your pick before I jumped in on that comment, but I was actually curious to see who you would go with there, Dalvin or CEH, to see just how much you were bought in on that hype. But as far as the wide receivers go, I can see it being an option for maybe in that 6 to 8 range, but 4 definitely way too high for a receiver, let alone Devontae Adams.
Well, my pick for 2-5, the one that I was hoping was going to make it to me, went off the board 1 pick ahead of me, Nicholas Chubb. So I'm going to go ahead and draft a guy that I was just trashing a little bit in the news. Even in the 8 slot, I still want to lock up 2 good running backs before I go into the following rounds. So I'm going to take Josh Jacobs here.
Are you not going to steal Frankie's darling of Aaron Jones?
No, I like Josh Jacobs more than Aaron Jones just because I think there's less competition for touches. And then Aaron Jones went immediately after me. So, but yeah, I think there's less competition for touches in that Raider offense. I mean, we know he's not going to be a huge factor in the passing game, but unless he gets hurt, there's no one really else in town who's going to take carries from him. So I kind of look at him as like a lesser Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I'm not super happy about that.
So you're looking at Kelsey now? He's sitting there. 32%. You're not getting him if you don't take him now.
Well,
or you're gonna go take,
pass up on that.
or you're gonna go take with Godwin. Maybe
I was thinking about Godwin. I can wait on tight end. I'm gonna go ahead and just lock up Chris Godwin here and have a receiver I'm confident is gonna have a better year than Mike Evans in that offense.
You can always wait on tight end. That personally.
So after that, we had Kenny Golladay, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, which is showing, I understand why you might go tight end in the second. I don't think it's a good time to go. I think you're giving up too much in that round to lock up a top tight end, but just something to keep in mind if you're thinking about that out there. If you want one of those top tight ends, if you really, really want one, and you're not comfortable, moving forward without one, you have to lock them up in the second because that's what they're going to be going in most drafts. Like if they fall to you in the third, it's a gift. They're not making it there most times.
Oh yeah, definitely not. Back up to my pick. This one's pretty simple for me because I'm not gonna reach for a guy like AR-15 or Mike Evans, so I'm just gonna go ahead and lock up Austin Eckler and have my duo of running backs. I think it's just Eckler is just a solid guy for the back of the second, top of the third type thing, and I'm surprised he's sitting there after how well he started last year.
He's like an opposite of Nick Chubb or Josh Jacobs, where he's going to do almost nothing for you on the ground, but he's like a wide receiver in the running back position for you. So especially in PPR, he's a huge value.
Coming back around,
3-2 I think is tougher for you.
Yeah, definitely. Juju is definitely a tease here. Allen Robinson, like I said, I usually want nothing to do with.
Sure.
I might go a little more, a little away from my Juju love, and I'm going to go ahead and take Amari Cooper, who's got the better offense, and I think has the higher upside for as far as points go.
I think it's something to say too about. I mean, we've mentioned in the past, but like you want to be targeting offenses that are like high-powered, high-functioning offenses. Obviously, the Steelers aren't a bad offense, but if you're putting a number on it, the Cowboys are more likely to have a high-powered season than the Steelers are, because the Steelers have a lot more risk attached to their offense. So, I mean, if you have all of them sitting in front of you and they're all kind of the same, use that as a tiebreaker, because they're both kind of injury prone, but Amari Cooper is more likely to be tied to the more powerful quarterback this season.
Yeah, speaking about high-powered offenses, I'm going to roll the dice here with the news of the re-agitated injury, and assuming that he's going to be healthy to start the season. I'm going to pick up Todd Gurley here.
I don't hate it.
Ideally, I wouldn't want him as my second running back. I want to try and go 3 in the first 3, but things just don't really work out with having the 6th pick, so you know, you got what you can.
You definitely have to reach a little bit if you want to lock up 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds if you're drafting out of the 6 hole, because it's one of those spots in the draft where there's no one really falling to that spot typically who's like a value there. So you're either drafting someone a little bit ahead of their ADP or you're going wide receiver.
Yeah, so actually, speaking of wide receivers, I want to ask you this question. There's 2 guys that are interesting right next to each other that both have similar projections. Thielen or Moore? Who do you think has the...
Oh, well, I locked up Thielen.
Okay, so that kind of answers the question.
I don't want... It's tough for me because I like DJ Moore a lot. I liked him last season. I've liked him as a prospect in previous seasons. And obviously I'm a big CMC fan. I think I like a lot of the weapons for that Carolina offense. I'm down on them as a whole this year, though. I think too much changed in a turbulent year for the NFL. I'm kind of hands-off with Carolina this season. I don't want CMC. I don't want DJ Moore. I don't care about anyone else in that offense. I just it's new coach, new quarterback, no preseason. There's too much there that is choking up value for me. Actually, I really like who fell to me here, too. I'm actually going to go ahead and lock up Calvin Ridley, someone who I usually don't get because he always goes before my pick. But like I was getting to, Adam Thielen is just, I think he's too much of a locked-in value, and his price is depressed because he's old and he's boring. So I'll always take him over the fancy new guy because, especially, like I said, in PPR leagues, he's going to get you a lot of points as long as he's on the field.
Yeah, I'm very happy the person before me took Sutton because you kind of nabbed my guy there.
You taking Robert Woods?
Yeah, I'm going to take Robert Woods here.
He was the other one I was looking at, but I already have safety on my team at the wide receiver position, so I wanted to shoot for that upside with Ridley as opposed to taking another safe guy in Woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, that's why I thought it was an interesting pair to be right next to each other because they both have offenses that should do well, but as far as players go, they are quite opposite. One's the young up-and-comer, the other one's the established vet. They're both teams that heavily use their running backs, and it's just it's more of who do you feel like could be the better value for you. Here, this is actually kind of a tough pick. I want to lean DJ Chark here just because of he's the top guy in that offense, and they're going to be throwing a lot. But if they're still a bottom half offense, there's only so many points I can get out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas Tyler Lockett,
a lot of 3 and outs on that team.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and still buy in. I'm going to go ahead and buy in on Chark just because of the touchdowns that kid's going to get. Whereas Lockett, I feel like I could be watching a lot of DK Metcalf games and being left with nothing. Whereas I don't think there's going to be someone supplanting Chark that we know of yet.
It's an interesting range, too, because Keenan Allen's going right with them, too. And he's another guy who, Keenan Allen has, I may not like him this season, but he has legitimate top 12 upside because of the skill of the player. If everything breaks his way, if that offense performs better than we think it's going to perform, Keenan Allen could be, a league winner for someone as a guy who could finish as a wide receiver 1 going in the back of the 4th, beginning of the 5th. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to find. I think that's the appeal for him if you want to believe in Keenan Allen is there's a lot of ways that he could have a very good season for you.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think he's a good value just right where I am and with the players in front of me. I'm going to go running back here, and I'm just going to go ahead and lock up David Johnson as my flex. I think he's on still a good offense with a great quarterback, and with just the amount of targets that have just got vacated, I think he's going to have a great role in that team. And I don't think we're going to get back to. I don't think we're going to get close to him, challenging for the top spot for running backs, but
His thousand years are done.
Yeah. Those years are gone. But he could still. He should easily be a running back too this year.
Yeah, I think that I'm gonna kind of heed your advice there on the Tyler Lockett and go with the guy who I really like here, which is Mr. Metcalf. Like I said, in the over under. Forgot the name of the game show for a minute. But no, I think he's gonna kind of supersede Lockett in the number 1 role this season, at least in fantasy.
Yeah, he gives you great upside.
Well, and they're one of the duos that I'm most interested in, not from a drafting perspective. I mean, I like both of them, but like I'm almost a little nervous to draft either of them just because they are both people who could, like, we could see a situation where one of them is good and one of them is bad. I'm interested to see what happens with them and where the fantasy community ends up. I'm personally more on the side with Lockett over Metcalf side of things. But they could be an interesting situation going into the season this year. At my pick here, there's not a lot of guys that I'm in love with in this range, honestly. I do still need more wide receivers, and I think I'm going to pivot away from that anyway because there is a running back that I don't think is going to be there at my next pick in David Montgomery. So I'm going to lock him up to give myself 3 running backs that I'm comfortable with going into the season. Especially because, I would love to have T.Y. Hilton, but I'm not gonna pick him over a running back when the running back position really dries up after the 5th round. And then I'm going to turn back around. I'm going to grab a different veteran who I have been slowly warming on as the offseason goes along. I'm going to grab A.J. Green. I mean, we're just here. I wasn't an A.J. Green fan in May or June. But as the offseason goes along, we hear more and more good news coming out of camp about this guy, about how he's returning to form, he looks healthy, he looks like he has good chemistry with Joe Burrow. I mean, A.J. Green is a very skilled receiver. If he's going to be on the field, I want him on my team. And I'm comfortable taking him in the 6th round as my 3rd receiver. I can draft guys to back him up so he doesn't kill me if he goes down. I mean, he's a guy who we used to take him in the 2nd round. You're not losing 2nd round value on him anymore if he goes down, if you're taking him in the 6th.
Yeah, I do think he has some sneaky value, and he has that. It's the same thing with T.Y. Hilton at this point. They're just guys who people are going to picture just being on the shelf, so they want to avoid them and go for the shiny new toys like all the sophomores like your DK Metcalfs and Marquise Browns over them when you could lose your league because you invested too much in these hypey players and didn't get yourself anything sure. Granted, I'm already kind of going that route in this draft with DJ Chark and Marquise Brown now staring me in the face. I think I am still going to go with him just because Tyler Boyd is an interesting pick here, but I don't think he has the safety that I liked from last year where he had a sure quarterback that could get him the ball. I don't know what Burrow's going to be. I like Burrow, but I don't know. This actually is a really tough pick.
Now, let me pose a question to you here. Why take Marquise Brown over someone like Kareem Hunt, who is still on the board?
Easy question. I already have 3 running backs, so
Sure.
I want to get that 3rd wide receiver right now.
Okay.
I actually am going to go against what I literally just said. I'm going to go ahead and take Tyler Boyd just because I'm going to buy in on the hype of Burrow. Like I said, this is a lot of what happens in your drafts where you're just staring at 2 guys you like for different reasons. I already feel like I have some good upside, so I'll try and hopefully capture some safety with Boyd and go on from there.
And then it's back to your pick. Who are you looking at 7-2? Kareem Hunt's still there. You also got guys like Marvin Jones, Brandon Cooks. You could take a quarterback. I know Josh Allen's on the board right now. Evan Ingram, if you believe in him, this is a good range for Evan Ingram.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
Tyler Higbeast is still there.
Yeah. If I didn't just fill out my third wide receiver spot, I'd probably go Brandon Cooks here. But I am going to go with your advice and go Kareem Hunt here and just give me a fourth running back, especially in a year with the amount of injuries we might be dealing with or COVID injuries.
And he's easily the best handcuff in the league.
Oh, yeah.
He's not only a handcuff, he's someone who's going to provide you value, maybe not every week, but a lot of weeks. He's going to provide you flex to maybe running back 2 value. And if Nick Chubb ever goes down, you have, a top 5 running back in the league on your team?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is like if there's a maintenance week where Chubb's out with like a hamstring injury and I catch a good matchup, Kareem Hunt could be a top play for that week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him be legitimately one of the top running backs in the NFL before. I think the only thing stopping him from being that with the Browns is that he has Nick Chubb in front of him, who is, I feel comfortable saying, a much better pure running back than Kareem Hunt is. Kareem Hunt might be the better pass catcher, but Nick Chubb is the better overall running back.
Yeah.
7-6, Frankie. What are you thinking?
I am gonna reach a little bit here.
Reaching, huh?
Bold. Actually, you know what? I'm not gonna reach here. I'm gonna take Brandon Cooks here. Vitale took the piece of the Houston offense that I did want in David Johnson. So I'm going to get the piece that I wanted the second most. I mean, we've seen Cooks be a top 12 receiver several times over his career. And getting him in the 7th round, I'm not going to complain about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you took Cooks there because I thought you were going to take my pick, Matt Ryan. So
No, I'm going to wait on quarterback a little bit, at least for this one.
Ryan is extra shiny to me right now just because I also have Calvin Ridley. I believe in Ryan as a standalone quarterback this year. If I compare him with one of his top 2 options, I'm even happier to own him. And then the draft flips around. I'm going to take another guy that I warmed on, briefly cooled, then went right back to warm on. Going to grab Ronald Jones again.
I was going to say, is it Ronald Jones?
I love him. I cooled for 3 days when LaShawn McCoy was signed. And then Bruce Arians came out and said he's still the starter, nothing to worry about. Reports are coming out of Bucs camp that Ronald Jones is gelling with Brady and he's already earned the trust of Brady, which is huge for me. As a Patriots fan these last 20 years, and you guys know the same. It's like if Brady trusts you, you're going to be a piece of that offense, even if you don't necessarily deserve to be a piece of the offense. So I will take that statement to the bank and just hope it pays off.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead here and just take.
J.K. Dobbins.
I was looking at J.K.
It's honestly not a bad pick. He's like one of 3 handcuffs that I'm interested in this year. Him, Kareem Hunt, and Latavius Murray. For the same reason for all of them, where they all could provide standalone value just because of how they're used in their offenses. I mean,
yeah, I was gonna go off of him. I am gonna draft him there. I was looking at quarterback again, but I think I can wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, look at how much the Ravens ran last year. Mark Ingram only had 200 touches last year, or 200 runs last season. They're going to run outside of Mark Ingram. They just drafted J.K. Dobbins high. He's probably going to be the second running back in that offense.
Yeah, I'm kind of bumming right now. I was hoping for Carson Wentz to fall to me here, just to get a quarterback with a high pass volume, which the guy staring at me right now I'm not a huge fan of. I wanted to go wide receiver here just to kind of start filling in, but when I'm looking at Jamison Crowder and Mike Williams and Manny Sanders, I'm not too enthused. So I'll go ahead with the guy we just found out is going to be a starting running back in the NFL right now. I'm going to go ahead and lock up Marlon Mack. So if 5 this early is a bit much, but like I said, it's just the value of having a deep running back bench. And now I don't even have to look at running back for the rest of the draft. Those are 5 quality running backs that I can either try and use as trade chips in the early part of the season to kind of shore up my team, or I can just use Marlon Mack as an early flex guy if I don't feel like David Johnson's gelling, and he could really win me some weeks.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, David Johnson and Marlon Mack are people who I would just play the better matchup between them, or just use both of them and put one of them in the flex. I'm still a little worried about David Johnson and how he seemed to have lost a bit of a step last year. Obviously, he's going to have the work in Houston, but we've seen it before where you could have all the work in the world. If you're cooked, you just you're not going to do anything with it. So I definitely don't hate Marlon Mack there. I think it's a little early for him, but I also don't know if he would have made it to your next pick. So
yeah, that was more my thing. Is he's not making it back to me. So I'll go ahead and just lock that in. For this next pick, it's not very clear to me, honestly. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take a guy I like that I know can pull some touchdowns down. So I'll just go ahead with Mike Williams.
Sure.
Just because everything else in this range is not great, and I'm not going to take Brady in the 9th. If I missed on quarterback for this fight, I'll just wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, Brady has never been historically, barring a couple of years, a great fantasy option.
It looks like the draft gave you Tyler Higbee instead of Mike Williams. I saw the clock run to 0 as you were talking, so I was curious if you were actually going to get your pick in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, might just be my computer running slow, but like I said, I clicked it, took my hand off, had 10 seconds to talk about it. So.
Oh, yeah. On my screen, you were running at 0 when you clicked.
I am gonna take another quarterback though here.
Auto drafting in a mock draft.
I'm gonna
Maybe a little bit, to be
I'm
honest.
gonna reach and I'm gonna pick up Aaron Rodgers here.
So I will say though, I mean, I hate Higbee, but I mostly hate Higbee because of where he was going. I'm not going to take Higbee in the 6th or 7th round, which is roughly where his ADP is right now. But if Higbee's falling to the 9th, I become more interested in him just because of the fact that they are an offense who's going to throw a lot, and we saw what he can do if he gets target share. So assuming Higbee maintains his role in that offense, if you're getting him in the 9th, one, his price is depressed, so you're not losing as much if he busts on you. And if he goes off from the 9th, you're getting a better value there. So I actually am more interested in him in the 9th than the 6th.
Yeah, like I said, that's why I was looking. That was for all those reasons I was looking into him. It's just I like so many of the later guys that I was like, I'd rather just wait. But honestly, that Higbee was like, I was just kind of waffling back and forth on him. But he is a guy that I am believing that the Rams are going to have a resurgence. Maybe they're not. They're not going to be a top offense. They don't have the weapons for it now. But I think that Sean McVay is a talented enough coach and a great offensive mind. He'll figure out how to use his weapons. So I don't think Higbee will be that bad. But he's also cuttable in the 9th.
So I jumped in and I took the guy that you were going to take. Mike Williams is a guy who I'm not really that interested in the earlier rounds, but by the time the 9th comes around, I'm willing to take a shot on him. Obviously, we've loved his skill in the past. We love what he brings to the table, and the fact that he's still sitting there and I don't have to use him as a top 3 option on my team, that I can just sort of like let him either perform or get cut. I'm fine taking a shot on him there, and then I'm going to turn around. I'm going to continue my Atlanta stack and grab Hayden Hurst. Did you want Hayden Hurst, Frankie?
Yes, I did.
Am I thieving more picks from you?
I was looking at tight end there.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take.
I think Hayden Hurst is a fantastic value in the 10th.
Me too.
He's another guy like Higbee who I was cooling on him just because of how high you have to draft him. But if he's going to be falling to the 10th round, I am suddenly much more interested in Hayden Hurst, who was drafted very highly by the Ravens and was just traded because they have another guy in Mark Andrews who's absorbing that role for them. Matt Ryan's a great quarterback, and especially if Todd Gurley is injured going into the season, or if Todd Gurley can't hack it, Hayden Hurst should catch a lot of that volume.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Old Man Cook here.
That's boring.
Yeah, I mean, well, you took my shock factor play.
Frankie, that's not a shock in the 10th.
Listen, he was sitting there until the 10th.
I mean, if you're looking at old guys, Rob Gronkowski's still there, too.
He was very highly rated by Madden.
Yeah, 95 overall, Frankie. How can you pass that up? All right, Vitaly, what are you thinking about here? 10-11. Pittsburgh, Tevin Coleman, and Anthony Miller went off the board before you. I know you were probably looking at Miller, so.
I was. Here it's between two. Do I want to lock in Stafford now, or do I want to just take Golden Tate? So thinking about it and the amount of quarterbacks that have already gone off the board, I feel safe on trying to play the wraparound game for Team 1. So I'll go ahead and just take Golden Tate, hopefully, if system allow.
Well, and like something to think about too there. Like you said, there's only 2 picks between you and your next pick, and then you look at the board too. Even if you miss Stafford, Brady's still there. Daniel Jones is still there. Ben Roethlisberger's still there. Cam Newton, Baker Mayfield. I mean, even if you miss Stafford, there's still so many other quarterbacks who will probably perform just as well as him, if maybe a little bit worse. It's not a huge loss if Stafford goes off the board in between your picks. Yeah, and that's a spot where it's smart to play the ADP game or the waiting game.
Right. Like I said, I'd have to go back and double check. I believe he already did take a quarterback, but that's something you can do in your drafts. If you're on the wraparound, you just look at who, if you're the 3 guy, you can look at team 2 and team 1. Do they have quarterbacks yet? If so, they're probably not interested in guys like Brady or Stafford unless they're one of those guys who just think, oh yeah, let me stack these guys up and protect myself, which it has some value, but I think it's just, especially in a pure redraft 1 quarterback league, you're just wasting value where you could take shots on guys like if you're in on Mecole Hardman here in the 11th, which I think in the 11th he's a great value, but we're seeing him fly up draft in live draft boards.
11 he's still interesting me. I mean, there's no sure things in 11, so aside from the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm looking at 2 kind of dice rolls here between Antonio Gibson and Zach Moss because I do want to get another running back, but I think that there's another guy I can wait on.
I mean, of the 2 of them, it makes more sense to go Antonio Gibson just because Zach Moss isn't the starter in his own system, and he's not going to be unless Devin Singletary gets hurt, whereas Antonio Gibson could take that role. If you're just hunting for upside here, he's the one who has the more upside just because of how fluky that Washington offense is. There's no one there who you look at and you're like, wow, they're the rock solid starter. It's 2 old guys and Antonio Gibson and some other guys who kind of suck. But my guy fell to me. I'm pretty happy with this, so I am going to go ahead and lock in some more upside here with Mecole Hardman. As I've been drafting so far, and sort of my drafting style as a whole is to draft upside late, but I don't have a lot of upside on this team right now. I mean, I've Josh Jacobs, safe running back. Adam Thielen and A.J. Green, safe wide receivers. Dave Montgomery, safe running back. Ronald Jones, safe running back. So I definitely wanted to lock up some offense or some upside here for my offense in the later half of the draft. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Mecole Hardman, and I'm going to follow up with taking Allen Lazard. 2 guys who I think both have very high ceilings this season if their offenses perform the way I expect them to. Especially given the fact that we just found out that Allen Lazard's going to be starting opposite of Davante Adams, or he's the projected favorite to. So we've seen Randall Cobb have a lot of success in that number 2 Packers role before. Aaron Rodgers, obviously, and one of the best quarterbacks that's ever played in the NFL. I want wide receivers tied to him.
Yeah, I was hoping that Lazard would fall to me there because I have Aaron Rodgers on my team.
You should know better than that.
And I was going to matchup play him.
You should know better than that.
I am going to take another running back here.
Boston Scott.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. If anything happens to Miles Sanders, I mean, he's the only guy in town right now.
If anything happens to Miles Sanders, he is aggressively average for your team.
Yeah.
He is on my bench. So, I mean, going back to the Lazard thing, I didn't really want him as a starter. I kind of wanted him for those juicy matchup plays to just throw him into my flex. So I'm not too broken up about it, but
I mean, I also didn't want him as a starter. I just love the upside that he presents.
Fair enough.
And to your Boston Scott pick, that's sort of what I'm talking about when I say it's not worth it to draft handcuffs. It's especially not worth it to draft handcuffs who are entirely average. Like, if you must draft handcuffs, don't take the Boston Scotts of the world. Take the Tony Pollards or the Alexander Madisons, the guys who are in high-powered offenses and have shown that they have the skill to be high-end running backs if the guy in front of them goes down.
So I went ahead and just took 2 guys who were former teammates. I went with N'Keal Harry for that upside of hoping that it was just injury that was holding him back. And then I actually did go with Brady in the 13th just because he's way too low at this point. And I've already got a lower tier quarterback in Matt Stafford. So if the whole Brady experiment works out and all those weapons do produce a guy who can be the quarterback 8, the quarterback 6, then I feel very comfortable with the fact that I got him in the 13th. And he's very cuttable.
Sure. I mean, as someone who plays the streaming quarterback game, I will if there's no one I really like from my bench in the final rounds of the draft, I will generally draft a second quarterback that I know they have a few matchups I want to target, just because it's useful to have those guys, and if you can grab the high upside guys before you have to pay fab bucks for them, it's helpful. It's helpful to be able to just, switch them in and out. Stafford especially is someone who I would draft 2 quarterbacks with just because of how much we've seen him fail to stay on the field. I wouldn't feel comfortable with him being my only guy.
Oh yeah, I definitely wasn't going in the season with just a solo Stafford. I was looking at Danny Dimes or whatnot, but with the fact that Brady just fell down there, it's like it just felt like a good value getting what the ECR for him is the quarterback 11. So I have the 11 and the 12. So at least both my quarterbacks, one of them should be a quarterback 1.
So I actually also took a second quarterback. I grabbed Cam Newton, someone who I'm interested in as maybe not as my quarterback 1, but definitely as my quarterback 2 going into the season. Mostly because we've seen Cam Newton have an MVP season where we've seen him be extremely effective for fantasy owners. He's going to have to go back to that old Cam Newton if he's going to perform for these Patriots and get another contract. When we talk about guys on a contract year, he's sort of in that boat. I want to try and capture that upside if it's there. And while I like Matt Ryan, we've also seen Matt Ryan have a lot of dud weeks and dud seasons. They're two guys who both gave me very high upside, I believe, while not really not representing a ton of downside, because if he sucks, I just cut him and pick up someone else. I mean, there's so many quarterbacks in the league, especially in a one quarterback league. You want to never, unless you're holding on to like a Pat Mahomes or a Russell Wilson, you never want to hold on to a quarterback if they start sucking. Just cut them and find someone else.
Yeah, I mean, like, speaking to that, I mean, last year I had Mahomes, Kelsey, and I ended up moving him for Dak, Amari, and somebody else. Or I think I threw in somebody else threw in a piece. But I mean, Mahomes was obviously not on pace for what I had drafted Matt in the third round.
Well, he was hurt last year.
Yeah, well, for a couple of games, but
that'll throw off his pace, though.
He wasn't performing up to where I drafted him, so I was just
Correct.
like, you know what, I'm going to pick up the guy who I can get for a tremendous value. So, I mean, if it's not working out, it's not working out. Just cut your losses, move on.
I do also want to point that you got sniped again. Another player that you're a big fan of just went right before you pick, Mr. Damian Harris of the New England Patriots.
Yes, I know.
One wasn't me.
So coming now into the 14th and the 15th, the last two rounds, it's time to fill in those overlooked spots, that defense and kicker.
Yeah.
So with my pick here, I'm going to go grab my defense first. I'm actually going to go away from the Chiefs, and I'll grab the team that, I know strength of schedule doesn't matter until we're in season. You can really see how teams are playing, but I'll take the Rams, who do still have two of the best players in defense. Mr. Aaron Darnold, who's regularly in the top 5 of just overall, and they still have Jalen Ramsey. So I'll bank that those guys can keep that defense afloat against what they consider the worst, best strength of schedule for a defense, so worst offenses.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's just those two things together. I think they have the chance to be a great defense.
well, it's like, I mean, they've been a good team, and I mean, kind of things like I said last episode, things just didn't break their way last year. They were 9-7 and somehow did make the playoffs. I think that they're going to be a defense that's going to score you points. I stream defense typically, so what defense I pick here doesn't really matter to me. But
So go ahead and make your pick, and then I'll speak to that point.
yeah, I just picked up my kicker there, Greg DeLeg.
Greg's early. So if you still play with kickers, and we still play with kickers because we're a democratic league and our league votes to keep them for some reason, but if you still play with kickers, bring it up to your league to get rid of them because kickers are useless.
Yeah.
While I do agree, though, with your point that defenses don't matter as much because we need to sort of assess the strength of schedule as the season goes on, I always advocate for taking a defense who likely will have a weak schedule in the first 3 to 4 weeks, because while we don't have any hard data, we still at least know who was bad last year.
You know that the KC and Jacksonville are stark differences, even if
Yes.
you don't know exactly how they're going to play this year.
So a defense that I love this year, especially because they're not a top defense going off the board, so I can wait until the last round to get them, is Denver. I mean, Denver has Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay as 3 of their first 3 matchups. And yes, Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay may be a lot better this season, or they could still be really bad. It's entirely speculation that those are going to be improved offenses. We could still see them be turnover prone. I mean, Big Ben's been turnover prone even while he's been scoring points before. I will risk that, especially with Vic Fangio being at the head of those Broncos. I mean, he's a defensive minded coach. Obviously, those Broncos have a lot of players on their team. If you're looking at just someone who you can grab as a streaming defense for the first 3 or 4 weeks and then move on, they're a great defense to pick. And then I'm going to turn around and just grab a running back rookie that I'm a fan of, Joshua Kelly. He's my last pick in the draft, and he's someone who I think could take on a large role in that offense, especially given how much the team seems to despise Justin Jackson for some reason. Frankie, what are you thinking here? Last pick for you in the draft. Actually, last pick for any of us in the draft, I believe.
Nope, I still got mine.
Yeah.
Oh, weird. My board isn't loading you for some
guy
reason.
I've been picking up in the last couple rounds, the past couple drafts, Anthony McFarland Jr.
Sure.
That
I like him a little bit less than Joshua Kelly, but I still think he provides interesting upside.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about him too, but then I've just got the depth I have. I don't really need it, so I'd rather take a shot at a wide receiver that could be
Like Paris Campbell.
exactly like Paris Campbell.
I saw him at the top of the board, and I was like, I know who Vitali's getting.
Yeah, he was only a couple players down. So when you first said a guy you were taking late, I know you were starting to shy towards Paris Campbell and Pittman. So yeah, I'm just gonna go take Paris Campbell and finish on my draft with another just late wide receiver that might blossom into something on a team that's gonna need to throw.
All right, let's see where we finished. Frankie, you want to, as the winner of last draft, you want to take us around the table? Where'd you start? Where'd you finish?
Well, mine's currently not showing up right now, so you guys should start.
Okay, Vitali, take us away.
I returned to the A status with a 91.
Is your still not loading?
Oh, no, I got it. Take a guess at what I got.
You got a 32.
95.
I got a 96. Again, for the third draft in a row.
All right, I came in third this one with an 88. So that's my lowest score yet. I gotta start bouncing back here. But Frankie is taking a commanding lead in these drafts.
Yeah, I thought I had that one. I felt very confident with it. The only part where it got a little shaky for me was when I was hitting those middle rounds, and quarterback was really getting slept on in this draft. So a lot of quality guys in those later tiers, like the 8th, 7th to 9th. There wasn't as many values as I felt like. But
Sure.
That's also the benefit of doing these, where their mock draft client is quite good and is not going to just give you a free mock draft towards an A. So
Yeah.
you really have to kind of try and sometimes take a guy you're not as sold on and grab that value.
I think, honestly, one of the most beneficial things for me having these mock drafts, I mean, maybe not for the first half picks, but having a lot of bottom half picks, I kind of know where the people around me, who's going to be available there at their picks.
Yeah.
Which is going to help me in my own draft strategy.
Well, and that's one of the advantages of doing a lot of mock drafts, is you learn where people are going, so it's a little more reflexive for you.
Yeah.
All right, well, that'll do it for us today. Join us next week as we bring you another Best Ball Sunday, and then we launch into our favorite picks in the middle rounds. Any closing thoughts for you guys?
Nope.
All right. See you guys on Sunday.
Finger guns.